If I told you that there was a method of education that was getting 100% literacy rates and up to 95% graduation rates, wouldn't you want to know what that method had to offer? And if I told you that method was currently being employed and existed someplace in the world right now, wouldn't you want to know what the secret sauce was? I know I did. So I'm here today to share with you all about the things I discovered when I dug a little deeper into the educational system of Finland, what we can learn from what they do, what will work right now, what are things that we can bring right now into our home setting, or if you're a classroom teacher, things that you can bring into the classroom setting. All right, let's dive in. So let's dive into what's going right in Finland and what that can mean for you as a parent right here in the States or wherever you are in the world. I reviewed the methods and what the research has to say about what they're doing in Finland. So I'm excited to bring this to you today and share with you ways that you might even already be employing these strategies in your homeschool setting if you're homeschooling, and how homeschool or the home setting is a great opportunity to utilize some of these concepts and ideas. But before I get into the details of today's episode, I just want to encourage you to subscribe to never miss a learning moment. All the free and affordable resources that I have to offer for learning for littles. And make sure that you give a like, help me get this information out to more families, and let YouTube and me know that you appreciate or learn something from this episode. Now, it's no secret that Finland seems to be doing something right in their educational system. This is something that we've been hearing about if you're in the educational world. We've been hearing about for a while. So it's no secret that they're getting something right. And if you're a parent, it's a great place to look at strategies that can be brought right now into your homeschool setting. The Finnish school system is not built to just stamp out workers. It actually promotes entrepreneurship and it promotes thinking outside the box. And again, those are ways of thinking that we can encourage in our children. Now, I have some truth bombs to share today that might get me into a little bit of trouble. They might go against the grain a bit, but I really think it's important to bring these topics up so the parents can have the best information and make the decisions that are right for their child, because there really is a developmental range for learning to read. So I'm going to share with you one of my biggest concerns when it comes to learning to read resources on the internet. And that is, I get really concerned when I hear creators that are encouraging parents and sharing with parents that children have to be learning to read when they're really little. Now, of course, we definitely have 3-year-olds that are ready for reading. And there's nothing wrong with a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, of course, learning to read. But we do want to be careful, and we want to make sure that we're paying attention to what real research says about the developmental range of reading and reading development. So developmental range of reading can go anywhere from age 3 to age 8. And the average age range of children that are ready to read is age 6 or 7. So you can picture it kind of like a bell curve. And of course, we have 3-year-olds that are ready. We have 8-year-olds that are ready. And it turns out that Finland pays attention to this developmental range. I really want to bring this up today because it's very important that we don't start our learning to read journey or our relationship to reading stressed. And I know that there's a lot of fun methods being shared out there, and they're actually really great methods. My concern is more the message that we have to start children ahead. And in reality, that contradicts what research says. Research says that if children are started with reading, like academic reading skills, and really learning how to decode words before they are developmentally ready, that not only doesn't necessarily mean they stay ahead, because children that learn to read young tend to plateau at about age 8 or 9, but it also can have some developmental consequences if we're not careful how we're doing this. My videos that I provide, they go from age 3 to age 8, and I always make sure to encourage parents to really focus on the developmental range of their child, because you as the parent know what your child is ready for. And I also want to just throw it in there that it doesn't matter who is reading down the street, your neighbor's child or the other kid at the preschool or in the co-op or whatever the case might be. The important thing is to do the right thing for your child. And developmentally, research-based information says, and we know, that there are milestones that children need to meet when they are developing their literacy skills. So it is not a bad thing for children to learn their letter sounds, to learn how to blend words. There's absolutely nothing wrong with 3, 4, 5 years old working on those skills. But at the same time, we want to make sure, keeping in mind a developmental type concept, such as we think about a child, their physical milestones, and we know that crawling and going to cruising and then going to walking, those are developmental steps, and they each give a different benefit to the child and the way that their developmental, physical, their coordination is developing. And we want to be careful that we're not skipping milestones when it comes to literacy development. For hundreds of years, children have engaged in rhyming and wordplay, and this really laid the foundation for them to be ready for literacy. And fortunately now we have a system and an understanding that allows for the majority of children to access education. We no longer have a system where only some children are expected to learn to read and others are just going to be pushed into the workforce too young. We have a society where we value education, and we know it's important for children, all children, to be educated. And we know that's actually very important for a very functional society. We need children that are able to read, interpret, and analyze text and think for themselves. So what I'm saying is, it's okay to teach your children phonics young, absolutely. And if your child is super interested in reading, you go for it, because that you want to keep up with their interests. But I also don't want parents to be so concerned that if their child isn't reading at 3, that they're going to be behind. Not every child, and in fact, most children are not ready to read at 3. We need to make sure that they're getting the developmental milestones met, rhyming, wordplay, and, of course, reading to children doesn't teach them how to read, but it does give them important skills, such as concepts about print, where children are learning how books work, and they're learning how to pay attention to the details when they're reading, because you're discussing with them what's happening in the book. So there's so much going on in that young age that I don't want us to get so caught up in just teaching children to decode, because there's so much more to reading. So again, I'm going to reiterate just for those in the back. Yay, phonics. Phonics are super important. They're foundational. They have been missing from the conversation in reading instruction for too long. Definitely, the focus on phonics is on point. But we can't miss the forest for the trees and throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. We need to make sure that children are getting that phonological awareness, which is rhyming and other types of language awareness that builds fluency and confidence in our reading. All right, so this is something that Finland is getting right. They are focusing more on these developmental milestones and developing those neural pathways in the child's brain. This is very important and something that we can definitely take back to our home setting. So teach your child their phonics, teach them to decode, but also make sure to attend to skills such as wordplay, rhyming. I have some great lessons, so check them out. Have your child participate or watch to get ideas so that you can do those activities with your children. So let's move on to our next point. My next takeaway from the Finnish educational system is early intervention. And that's really important because sometimes if we sit on a challenge or a problem, it just kind of snowballs. So this is my recommendation. If you notice that your child is experiencing a delay, and again, really make sure you look at what that developmental range is for those skills. But if you're concerned that they're experiencing a delay, definitely look for resources to get them some help in that area. So if you're in the school setting, request testing in writing. If you are a homeschool parent, then it might be time to look for resources that can assess your child. If you have a concern that they may have a delay of some sort, some delays we don't diagnose very young. Dyslexia is one of those. Dysgraphia can be a very tricky one as well. But if you're starting to notice some of the early signs, such as difficulty remembering letters and numbers, shapes, if they have a very hard time learning those, they seem just to get a blank slate each time. Not necessarily does that mean they have dyslexia or dysgraphia, but it can be an early sign. So if you notice early signs, or if you are reaching a developmental timeline milestone, such as like, let's say you're getting to like age 8 and age 9 and they're still struggling with blending those beginning words, there's resources out there. It's okay. But don't be afraid to have a professional, an expert look at that. Typically, it tends to be an educational psychologist that would do that type of diagnostic testing. And you might look into resources, maybe ask a pediatrician or through your co-op, or if you have health insurance that would cover something like that. That might be something that you can look into and find out what resources or remediations you can do while the child is still at an earlier stage so that you can prevent gaps. Because what happens is that if there is a learning disability or challenge, a way that the brain is working a little bit differently in interpreting visuals or auditory, we even have things such as auditory processing disorders, then gaps can develop. So that is no way to make you panic. As a parent, I come from a very personal place on this, so I can reassure you there are resources and that it's not as scary as it sounds, that once you get the help and the diagnosis, that there are definitely ways to go about helping your child and help them thrive. So I want to encourage parents, because in reviewing the way that the Finnish educational system goes about things, there's very early intervention. Now, if you're just having some issues with a certain skill set, like maybe they're just not picking up on some of the long vowels, or they're having trouble with their digraphs, like the SH or the TH, then you can just focus on those skills. Now, of course, not to exhaustion. We always want to stop before our kids are done. We don't want to wear them out. So sometimes if you have a little skill set that is a gap, all you need to do is spend maybe 5 minutes a day and just work on that skill, but also make sure that you are including their strengths, because children, they need to feel like they shine, and they need to shine in the ways that they need to shine in their areas of strength. So work on those challenges, still help them to shine in their areas of strength. If you would like a checklist that would give you some ideas of what phonics and reading skills to look at for areas that your child might need to work on, this is purely academic, not diagnostic in any way for learning disabilities. This is only to do with phonics and academics. But if you're looking for an academic phonics and reading checklist, I have one available for free in my paid teachers storefront. You can download that for free. The link is in the description box. And again, it is not diagnostic for a learning disability. That's not my, so to speak, wheelhouse. I am, of course, very familiar with learning disabilities and how we address them and the interventions that we do, but I'm not, that's not my training to diagnose. However, for academic phonics skills, I do have the checklist that you can use to make a little note if your child is missing a phonics skill. That way you can keep track of what you can work on for those little 5 minutes of extra practice. And with that, I'll see you next time when I teach to your super learning strengths, one child and family at a time.